Hi guys, Steve from Flite Brothers here, and today I'm going to show you a very simple mod for those of you living in the north in the cold weather flying. There's other options out there. I know there's that big muff thing that you put your hands in and try and fly with. You can try flying with gloves, but I felt like that completely took away any stick feel, and it was really difficult for me. So I came up with this easy solution to make your transmitter heated. So you go out in the cold, grab your transmitter is nice and warm, and it feels really comfortable to fly. If you just feel that warmth in your hands, it kind of takes away the feeling of the coldness while you're flying, and it really helps you get through in these cold days when you really want to just get out there and fly comfortably. So here's how I did it. It's super easy, but I do want to just say, with any modifications you make to your equipment, there's always a little bit of risk. So please watch the video, see how I do it, and take it into consideration and decide, you know, is this something I want to do, and can I do it safely? I believe the way I show you is safe. I don't think you're going to run into any issues, and I certainly hope you don't, but I'm just letting you know, of course, with any mods there is a risk of damaging things, so just be careful when you do it and do it right. So that being said, how did I do it? Well, I thought about the fact that all these, you know, motorcycles, snowmobiles, snow blowers, they have heated handlebars, and I looked into buying a heated handlebar type of system, and I found on Banggood for $3. I think it might be like $2.50 shipped. You can get these little kits. These are kits to make your handlebars on your different vehicles like that warm, and they operate on 12 volts. How many of us have a whole bunch of 12-volt batteries laying around that we can use? And it turns out they only draw around 1.5 amps, so it doesn't take a huge battery to give you quite a while worth of warmth. So what does this look like? Well, they come in this little kit, very simple, in a bag, and inside that bag comes 2 hand warmer units like this. I'll explain exactly what those hand warmer units are in a minute, but also in the bag comes a power switch, which you don't really need, but hey, maybe I'll use it for something else someday. A couple pieces of heat shrink tube. If you don't have any, it's good that it comes with it. And then these big ones, which are heat shrink tube that's meant to go right around the handlebar after you put this thing on there, but you know, maybe you could use them for something else someday. I'm not going to use them. It also, in the kit, comes with a roll of electrical tape, which we'll use for the modification. So these hand warmers are very simple. They are basically just a couple of wires, nice flexible, easy wire. I don't think it's silicone, but it's fine for this application. And they're attached to this card that has a piece of nickel chromium resistance wire spread through here. And of course, in order to make the warmer work, the nickel chromium wire cannot touch itself anywhere in there. It's just resistance wire. So you run the 12 volts through it. The 12 volts heats up this wire through resistance. You could technically buy, if you knew the right gauge and length, a roll of nickel chromium resistance wire, and do it yourself pretty easily. But the nice thing about this is, like I said, it's only like $2.50, and it's the right length to give you the amount of resistance you want in order to create the right temperature at 12 volts. So here's how you're gonna use this to create your heated transmitter. Basically, you are going to take this apart. So it starts, this is all taped together, so we're just gonna pull all the tape off of here. And after you get the tape off, you'll find that you can pull apart the whole thing to expose the card with the wire on it. So just notice I'm not being very careful. There's tape on here too. Alright, let me get that tape off there. Alright. So basically all we're trying to do here to get started is get the resistance wire off of the card under the plastic. So let me finish that up quick. And if you can do it without damaging the wire at all, that would be fantastic. There we go. All right. So once you get this plastic off of here, basically you just have this card with the wire put into these little slots. So I'm going to carefully pull the wire out of these slots to expose the entire length of the wire. Okay. All right. All right. Get rid of the card. I don't even know what it says. It's all in different language. All right. So now I don't know how well you can see this, but I have this nice length of nickel chromium resistance wire, which is attached to the ends of this wire, and it is soldered, so it's fine. If you're not comfortable with the solder job, you can always touch it up a little bit if you want, or take a little piece of shrink wrap, heat wrap, shrink tubing, and go over that with it just to make sure that it's good and sturdy. I didn't bother. It felt like it wasn't going anywhere. So, all right. So the next thing you're going to want to do is take apart your transmitter. I'm doing it with a Taranis because it's really the most popular one. I've also done this with a Turnigy 9X. That can be done. I'm figuring most transmitters have similar enough construction that you can probably make it work. This is actually only the front of my Taranis because I've already taken it apart more carefully than I did just take apart that heat warmer. So let's take a look at the back. I've already done one side. So you can see on this right side of my back half of my transmitter, all of this, let me move this board out of the way. Just a tip, when you take all the screws out for the transmitter, after you get it apart, put the screws back in the holes so you don't lose them, and then you can take them out and tighten things back down when you're ready. But you can see right here on this side, I have my electrical tape all taped down on here, and you might notice these black wires sticking out. Well, these are the black wires from the ends of the resistance wire, and you might be able to make out, yeah, you can see these grooves here. This is the nickel chromium wire underneath the electrical tape all along the back of my transmitter back. So what I did essentially is take the nickel chromium wire and I created a little loop pattern back and forth on the back of my transmitter, and I just taped it down real good with the electrical tape. Now, one important thing about doing this is that you do not want the wire to cross anywhere. It should touch itself anywhere, or else that's going to damage the circuit that makes it work, and it won't work as well. And you certainly don't want that to happen. So what you really want to make sure is that it does not cross anywhere. So you want to try and make these nice little looping patterns, and it turns out if I started up top here, you see the black wire goes under there. Okay, and that actually worked as a perfect channel to run that black wire. So if you start up here, you could go down, up, down the edge of that one, down into this, and around in another loop. And then I came back along the side right here, so you get warmth right around the side, and the wire ended right here. So I'm going to try and imitate this exact same pattern on the opposite side of the transmitter with my nickel chromium wire, and I'll just speed it up as I do that so you can kind of see the process I go through. Basically just using my electrical tape and this other piece of nickel chromium resistance wire to create that pattern on the side of the transmitter. Okay, so I've routed my my resistance wire all throughout the sides of the back of the transmitter. So now comes the part of how are we going to get power to this? Well, we've got a few options, but one thing that's really important is that you need to run these two heating elements in series. You don't want to run them in parallel. If I ran them in parallel and just say hooked these two ends from the two different ones to positive and the other two ends to negative, what's going to happen is that you're going to get these heating up way too much. I actually just to experiment hooked just one of these up, which would be basically the same thing, and the heat got so intense that I could barely hold on to the back of the transmitter. So it was too much. So you don't want to run these in parallel because they will build up far too much heat, more than you're looking to get inside your transmitter. So you need to run them in series. That means that one end of one of them needs to hook to the end of another one, like so, and then you hook your positive and negative up to here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use these two wires that are already conveniently running together in the middle. I'm going to cut and splice those two wires right into the middle there so they are connected, and then that will leave us to figure out what to do with the power wire here. So let's get to that next. Alright, so these two wires are spliced and ready, and they're just going to conveniently sit right down here in this compartment. They won't be in the way of anything. If I wanted to, I could you know, tape them down or something like that, but there's really no need. Just going to leave them right there, and it should not interfere at all when I put this back in. It should be easy enough to keep them safe. I can put it however I need it to make sure that it doesn't interfere with those things. Okay, so there's that. All right, so now we have to deal with these other two ends, and we're looking to get one to a positive and one to a negative on a 12-volt battery source. At this point, in my opinion, you've got a couple of options. Okay, a lot of people do not use the charging port. If you're using a LiPo, aftermarket LiPo in your battery compartment, you're not using this charging port. So this barrel connector can make an awesome option. You could make a lawn wire connector that has a barrel connector on one end and an XT on the other end, XT60 on the other end. Plug the barrel in here whenever you want heat with the other end attached to a 3-cell battery in your pocket, and you'll have plenty of heat straight through the barrel plug. And if you're worried about amp draw, like I said, these only draw like 1 amp tops, 1.5, so it's not a concern about whether or not the plug can handle it. So that's certainly a viable option. I think I'm going to leave mine intact for now because I'm still using the stock battery and charging it with this. So option number 2, in my opinion, is you could add a second plug to the side if you wanted, or just run these out the side with an XT60 right on them. I think that's a viable option as well, but I'm going to go with another option that I think works well. As you may know, the battery compartment has a lot of extra space. Even with an aftermarket LiPo in it, there's a little extra space in there. Certainly plenty enough for an extra JST connector. Certainly can handle the amperage, or it's small enough to fit in the compartment when you're not using it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook these ends up to a JST connector. I'm going to route it through one of the holes in the sides here, so it's always in the battery compartment for when I need it. And then whenever I want to use it, all I'm going to do is make an adapter, a nice long adapter with a male JST on the other end, well, technically a female on the other end, and a XT60 that I can plug into a battery in my pocket or whatever. And I'm just going to cut a small hole in my battery cover, probably just on the side, just small enough that so when I'm using it, I can get I can close it with 2 wires going through it in order to power up the heater whenever I want it. That's going to be my option. But like I said, you can find any sort of option to power it. You can use the barrel connector, which is conveniently usually right here if you're using it or not using it. You could add another port on the side, whatever you want to do. But I'm going to go with this JST option, so I'm going to go ahead and get that soldered up now, and this will be ready to put back together and get some heat back to it. So let's wrap this up. Alright, I've got that soldered up, ready to go. So I'm just going to feed that through this back hole here. So it's down into my battery compartment safely there. It wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe as a precaution to maybe put a big dab of hot glue right there, just to keep the wires in place and so you don't tug on them too much. I think I am actually going to go ahead and do that before I close it up. So okay, so while I was waiting for the hot glue gun to warm up, I got the circuit board put back in place, and you can see that none of this here, none of what I did interferes in any way with the circuitry here. It's not in the way, it's not touching anything. There's very little possibility of any sort of short circuit with it or anything like that. It's all covered, and it's not really close to anything where it could be a problem. So I feel pretty confident that this is safe, that it's not going to damage anything in any way. The last thing I said, just to assist in making sure, basically like a what do they call it? Like a relief, I can't think of the name. I'm just gonna put this big dab of hot glue there. So if I do tug on those wires, they're not gonna pull out and go anywhere. Very simple. Very simple to do that very quickly and make sure that you're not gonna pull those wires out and compromise any part of your work there. Alright, that's cooled off enough. I'm going to go ahead and replace the front back onto the transmitter, get that hooked up and back in place, and this will be ready with our heated transmitter mod to give it a try. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so as you can see, Taranis is back together. The JST is safely tucked away into the battery compartment. All I need to do is add a little hole actually on this side so I can run that wires out when I want them, and I can just plug in an adapter like this. Although probably a better solution would be take some of this extra black wire that we had from the install and create a long adapter with a XT60 on one end and the JST on the other. And then you got this nice long wire. You can plug it in when you need it. Put the LiPo in your pocket, in your coat pocket. When you want the heat, hook it up, and you are good to go. So that is it. That is the heated transmitter mod. I'm telling you, it does work. It's comfortable. It's easy and cheap, and it's worth doing. If you don't like flying in the cold weather and you want something that'll help make it more comfortable, give it a try. Let me know what you think of it, but it really is simple. And again, the link to the hand warmer kits from Banggood are right on in the description, and go ahead and pick up a couple cheap and try it out. And I hope you like it, guys. I hope it works for you. We just appreciate all the subscriptions. If you do like this video and want to see more, like and subscribe. I've got a couple more builds coming, some great products to review and test out, and we just appreciate all your support. So thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time.